afternoon, everybody. The reason why I'm so passionate about this is because the story I'm going to tell you has basically three perspectives. The first one is the patient part. I am a patient myself with asthma. The second perspective around the topic, which I want to share with you, is the professional perspective. And then the third perspective I want to share with you is why is this important as a Dutch citizen in healthcare. But let's start with the patient perspective. And I'm going to share with you, and it's quite scary, a personal story when I was 3.5 years old. Because when I was 3.5 years old, I really nearly died from an asthma attack. It was Christmas 1996. Sorry, 1969. I was 3.5 years old. I was 3.5 years old, and at the Christmas dinner, I blew the candles out, which afterwards appeared to be the trigger. And my mother put me in bed. And when I was in bed, I slept, and my parents continued the celebration. And at 11:30 that night, when my mother went to the toilet, she heard a sort of malfunctioning vacuum cleaner. And she went to the first floor, and there she saw me, as blue as probably the suit which I'm having now, really almost dying from a heart attack. Thank God the emergency doctor saved me, and I was referred to a specialist in the classical of the 70s, the one which probably Bas Bloem would describe as a god on his throne, and his dimension of heaven was single dimensional, because it was a lung, basically, because this man treated lungs and organs. And even he feared my parents by saying, if you're not following my treatment recommendations and my treatment decisions, probably your son won't reach the age of 20. So my mother did it, and my father did it, but she didn't get any support and any recommendation on how to manage the disease from a day-to-day basis, how to avoid triggers, and therefore my young life was a very bumpy road, where I really felt the limitations of having a disease. And I'm the classical story about a patient who was desperate to participate in life. And I had one passion, and that passion was football. And to really execute that passion, I could only end up in goal. And this experience in the past really sort of shaped my well-being, basically. Now I moved to the professional life, because when I, in 2007, became worldwide, first for Europe and later for the world, excluding the US, responsible for respiratory diseases within GlaxoSmithKline, I had a fantastic opportunity to be in a privileged position to really contribute to patients. And in that time, it was very clear for COPD patients that there's a huge gap between the daily practice of care and what guidelines and theory should guide people to do. And there was also not a clear, simple quality of life assessment tool to help patients and doctors to optimize the daily care. Yes, there was a gold standard quality of life questionnaire, but that's over 50 questions, and that's pretty meaningless in real life. It was only used for clinical trials, for drug development, for the FDA, etc. So what we did is we went to the worldwide experts around that field, and Paul Jones developed the gold standard, and we said, let's take up the challenge to develop something which is as accurate as this gold standard for clinical trials, but do it in a simple way, 10 questions at the max long, and make sure that the patient is at the heart and at the basis of the development. And that's what we did. We basically developed the test by going through patients' in-depth interviews together with all those scientists with 2 questions in our head. What are the areas and the items which really helps or are important for patients from a day-to-day disease experience? And secondly, how they express themselves in which language, which patient language they did. We developed this test, we compared it with the gold standard, and I have only one slide, which is on this page here. And I think the results are quite striking, basically. Basically, what you see here is the gold standard test, which is used for all clinical trials. Paul Jones developed it. In 1999, it was published. And you see it was physician-driven, because the source of insight of all the science and all the questions was the decision. And you see that the items on which really are important for patients were 8. And you see that 20 years later, we developed something with a patient in the heart of the development. And my take-home message of this slide, because it's published, you see that there's a correlation between the 2 tests of more than 80%. And I think what we all in this room here should learn from this is that 8 questions of patient language, really driven by patient insights and patient needs, can be as accurate as more than 50 questions of doctor language. I think that's striking, isn't it? This test, first published in 2009, has been embedded in the worldwide GOLD guidelines, which were updated in 2012. And with this, in patients in their hands and doctors in their hands, they really can optimize their daily treatment. And more importantly, if you now look at the guidelines, also the value and the importance of patient assessment in terms of daily life well-being has a far more dominant role than it had in previous guidelines. So I think that's also a significant step forward. So that brings me to my last perspective, and that is as a Dutch citizen in healthcare. So what do we all want here in this room? We want the best care for ourselves, for our loved ones, and for basically everybody who is living in this country. And we want to have that care affordable and sustainable in the long term. And I think what we've learned this day, and we've learned last year, is that participatory medicine is the way in doing that. And I think my plea to all of you is that participatory medicine is the way forward. But it's the one and only way to do it effectively if you have these tests available. Because then only the patient and the doctor together can set themselves targets where they want to treat towards to. They can assess what is important in terms of items from everyday's well-being. And that is something I think what we need for all, at least for all chronic diseases in the world. Because with this in our hands, participatory medicine will be proactive and will be focusing on the right items and not on just a few items which are asked for every quarter or every half year. And therefore, if we have developed these tests for those chronic diseases, I think we should have them in guidelines, and we should have them also embedded in daily life digital uses like e-health tools, like handheld tools, so that patients really can use them from a day-to-day basis. And if then all these data, which absolutely should be validated and scientifically robust, because that is very important, it shouldn't be just a test, but it should be as well developed as the test I just shared with you. If we do that, then within those database analysis, we have a really powerful database available where we can really assess the quality of life of people. And I think with that in our hands, we come to the essence where we are all here for. And the essence to where we are here for, according to my opinion, is that we need to have patients who are on the ball in proactively managing their disease, who are in the driving seat, and who, with these types of tools in our hands, can set their goals and can define their own destiny in health. Thank you very much.